Are you a speaker or do you want to get started speaking? Do you ever wonder how you can steadily get speaking gigs? If so, stay tuned to discover how. Welcome to Biz Success in 15. I'm your host, Cindy J, the Visibility Wiz, and I'm here to guide you as you step into who you are with outrageous confidence so that you have more visibility, influence, and profits. You can get your visibility checklist at visibilitychecklist.com. Today, we're going to be speaking about how to get speaking gigs. I have Lisa Reed with us. She's the founder of Get Speaking Gigs Now, where she trains entrepreneurs how to get booked and attract clients through the power of public speaking. She has personally delivered over 600 speaking engagements and runs the Speakers Training Academy. On this episode, Lisa's going to reveal the number one secret to getting booked and staying booked. Welcome, Lisa. It's a pleasure to have you.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here and share some juicy tips about speaking.
Yes, always fun, fun, fun. I'm excited to hear the juicy tips myself. Before we get started, can you share just a little bit with us about your journey and why you're so passionate about speaking?
Yeah, I think I got bit by the speaking bug a long, long time ago, even when I was a little kid. And I'll tell you a secret, Cindy. I'm actually a teacher in disguise. So I call myself a speaker, but I'm really a teacher in hiding. And I love teaching. I've always enjoyed teaching. When I was little, I wanted to be a gymnastics teacher, then a kindergarten teacher. You get the idea. I ended up
Yes.
actually majoring in speech communication in college for my bachelor's and master's degree. And I taught at Cal State Fullerton when I was 22 years old. I taught interpersonal communication. So it's kind of always been a part of me, but I
Mm-hmm.
will say I didn't become a professional speaker until I was 40, which was about 10 years ago from this recording. And I'll share a little bit about that triumph and trials and triumph as we go forward. But it wasn't it
Mm-hmm.
was a couple years later, people started asking me for help with how do you get booked? How does that work? And I didn't realize that I was doing something different that other people weren't doing, and it didn't occur to them. So that's how I started my company, Get Speaking Gigs Now.
I'd love that. It's very similar to me. People used to always ask me how I got the visibility I wanted, and that's how I became the visibility whiz.
There you
And to
go.
me, I didn't think I was doing anything special either. Uh, so often we don't give credit to what we know, or we don't realize that everybody else just don't know it.
Exactly.
And to start with, and let's talk about the first secret, the number one secret to get booked and staying booked as a speaker.
Yeah, and this is going to tie into our 15-minute tip as well. So, one of the things that just came naturally to me
Mhm.
that I thought everyone would be doing this would be to find strategic partners, right? And I know you're a genius at that. It doesn't occur to everyone, and not everyone's good at it. That's
Mhm.
okay. The good news is it's a skill you can learn. And I created out of an organic process, I created a system to help people who don't know how that works actually make it work for you so that you can have fun and get booked while you're having fun with someone that you enjoy being with. And
Mhm.
it just can provide you tons and tons of opportunities. In fact, I don't cold call for speaking anymore. I haven't for 8 years. I've been speaking for 10. I definitely cold called for the first two because you know, didn't
Mhm.
know. But once I realized this way of being, I thought, oh, wow, this could be a lot easier. Why don't I just do it that way? So I'll go into that. I'll go into more detail when we do our 15-minute process tip.
All right. And one thing that I do love about that is so many people, speakers, authors, coaches, consultants, they think that they're a quote unquote solopreneur. But in today's world, with the online world, we can't do it by ourselves. We need a team, we need people around us, and then we all help each other, which is what makes us all succeed.
That's 100% true. Well, so I had started networking with other speakers through my own organization that I created, because I thought, I can't do this all alone. I don't know all the answers. No, I still don't know all the answers. Gosh, right? But it really helped going to that every month and meeting other people, because I would get really cool tips each month. Like maybe it was a software tip or just a new resource. I mean, so many things have happened in 10 years. Facebook Live wasn't even a thing. StreamYard wasn't even a thing. Like
Right.
Zoom was barely a blip on the radar. So just those three things right there, you got to have people around you who can help navigate all this new stuff.
Oh, definitely, most definitely. I actually started my business in 2010 by doing a telesummit because there was no video, or it wasn't
Right.
easy to do video back then.
I
And
attended some of those in the early 2000s, the, teleseminar, telesummit, dial
right.
in, yeah.
Yes. Even though some of the technology has changed with some of the strategies we use, a lot of the strategies still work, just with a little bit of tweaking. So, whenever some people feel called, or some people believe, when I started coaching, I was told the only way you can get clients is you have to go speak. And I didn't, but I had a lot of knowledge of the online world, which is what I utilized, which is what propelled me into being the visibility whiz. And that was simply because I lived in a very remote area. I was working 50 hours a week, and it would have taken me a minimum 4-hour round trip drive to go anywhere to speak. And it wasn't plausible for me. So I know there's still a lot of people out there that are in remote areas, but they want to speak. Or there's just people that want to speak, and even if they're in a metropolitan city, don't know how to get started. So can you address both of those?
Sure. Well, the good news is now that we're pretty much 100% using Zoom in our life,
Yeah.
you can speak to all different types of groups all around the world if you wanted to. So
Mhm.
all of a sudden, I remember I was writing a webinar during COVID, when everything was starting and we didn't know what was going on and everyone was freaking out. And I booked 50 virtual speaking gigs between April 2020 and December 2020. And it was like, oh, wait a second. Like, I mean, I had been using Zoom already anyway, but as everyone else started getting used to it, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, there's no borders now. I can just speak anywhere as long as I want to get up at that time, whatever the time zone is, if that fits and the speaking engagement and the audience fits. Why not? So all of a sudden it went from a, a smaller bucket of speaking engagements to a huge, almost unlimited. I think I was like shooting fish in a barrel. I mean, there are just so many opportunities because we don't have those borders. So that addresses that. It's awesome if you're watching kids at home, or if you are in a situation where you're maybe taking care of a loved one and you can't leave as easily, or like you said, you're in a remote area, there's not really anything kind of going on in your area. I grew up in Fairbanks, Alaska. Not a lot of speaking engagements up there. Not that there's zero, but it's not like
Right.
it is, I'm in Southern California. There's a lot of, millions and millions of people around. So
Mhm.
it is different depending on where you live. But now it's a free market, honestly. Such a level playing field. It's unbelievable.
So is there any differences between online speaking and speaking in person, as far as what how it's going to help your business?
I think, is it different? Sure, it's a little bit different, but it's more the same. It's kind of like when people say there's difference between men and women. It's like, well, actually, I have more in common than we do different. It's that same metaphor, because you're still delivering your message. It's just a different platform. A couple things I really enjoy about virtual speaking is that I can see everyone. You know, in an in-person session, even if it's a smaller room, I may not be able to see the person all the way in the back or really look in their eyes or see their name. Whereas with Zoom or a virtual platform, you can usually see everyone's name. You can also get a little bit of insight into what they've got going on, how professional they are, where they might need some support. You can engage in different ways. So in person, I might possibly walk through the audience with the microphone, depending on the stage and the setting, or talk with people afterwards or prior, or maybe have lunch with them. In a virtual setting, I can engage, or you can, a speaker can engage with like, oh, I see you. Looks like you have a question. you just came off mute, or I see you typing in the chat. Oh, I love these. This is a great idea. So you can engage in the chat, but still including everyone. Plus, you can also put your links in the chat. People can click right away. They don't need to write anything down. So as you can see, I went from being a super duper fan of speaking in person to now I'm a super duper fan of speaking virtually. It's just so much easier.
Mm-hmm. And a lot less taxing on the body, since you're not having to fly all over the place and get all these hotel rooms.
The time, the risk, for someone new who maybe doesn't have a proven method, you're not out of pocket necessarily. When you're out of pocket, maybe a couple hours, an hour. Whereas before I would be putting miles on my car, and I would be gone. If I had a speaking engagement, it was pretty much the whole day was gone, even just because I want to get there early. I want to be the last one there. That's just a personal habit that I have. I don't like being the speaker who's still pulling stuff out of her bag or putting stuff away when everyone's there. I'd rather be on and be available versus doing those busy kind of things.
It makes so much sense. And so how does somebody know if speaking makes sense for their personal business?
I think one thing that's a good indicator is if you're clear on whatever your packages are, or like, for example, if you're a coach or consultant or for some kind of services that are potentially virtual, or, you have something that it's a little harder if you're a plumber, not to say you couldn't use speaking, but that's more a location specific. So you're a little bit more limited. But if your services or products are global, or there's not really words in it, and you have a good product or service, I'll give you an easy example. Let's say you have a product or service of $1,000, right? And you have a couple speaking engagements a month, which is very doable, extremely doable. Like if you're watching this podcast, then you have time to have a speaking, to get on a speaking engagement. And then you have a system where you've got your talk ready to rock. You know what you're talking about. You're talking to the right audience. You've got your clear call to action, and you are able to attract a certain amount of clients. Let's say you attract 2 clients. That would be a $48,000 sales in a year, right? Most people would welcome that easily with a couple of hours a month. That's a really great opportunity. That doesn't include additional sales or residual sales, or if your price point is more. That's a super, I think, conservative look at it. So if you are someone who's like, well, I only have a book to offer and it's $12, well, you're going to need to sell a whole heck of a lot of books to
Exactly.
So that's where you can start to see where the holes in the boat are. Does this make sense for you?
Yes. Okay. And so whenever somebody wants to start getting speaking, what are some of the best strategies to find those speaking gigs?
Well, the first step is actually before that. Is like, you got to get I always say, get your talk ready to rock. That's one of the things we do when we kick off someone in the Speakers Training Academy, because I always want you to be super clear on what is the brilliance that you're sharing and why. How does this all make sense? It all has to, make sense for your business. Then, and kind of at the same time, you're also figuring out, who are your clients? Where are they hanging out? Because here's where a lot of people get mixed up. They think, oh, a speaking gig is a speaking gig. That's like saying if you're single and you'll just date anyone who's single. No, obviously, as a person I'm not single, but I'm saying, like, if you're a single person, you have a certain criteria. Whatever, height, gender, personality, sense of humor, et cetera, and so forth. And it's the same with speaking engagements. Like, you don't want to mismatch yourself. And a lot of times I think people can get seduced by, like, oh, it's a speaking gig. I'm like, no. Does this make sense for your business? Are your potential clients in the room? And if they're potentially in the room, then now we're like, okay, that's a green light. Let's find out a little bit more. But you might start locally. Like, say you're just like, oh, I'm so brand new, I have no idea where to look. You might start locally. Like, who do I know locally? Just that's an easier target, instead of like, it's almost too big of a target. When I say you could speak all over the world, you're like, ah. But if you go, okay, who do I know in my, quote unquote backyard? Am I involved with people at the school or my former employment or like my neighbors, like my friends, who knows someone who, right? And you can
Mhm.
start thinking that way. Before you know it, you're going to have a list going because you're like, oh, wow, there's all kinds of things out there. There's associations, there's service groups, which are, that's good. Definitely if like you're definitely brand new starting and if your clients are in those types of rooms. And I mean by that, Kiwanis, Rotary, there's different kind of service groups depending on where you are.
And with some of those service groups, are they good for business coaches as well?
Sure. There's a lot of business people. They're just more philanthropy minded and they're
Mhm.
giving back to the community. So like anything, you need to make sure that you are spending your time wisely, that you've done a little bit of research, you've talked to the organizer, like what is it that they're expecting? What are the rules and parameters of that event? And is it a fit? Is it a win-win situation? Well, I'll say win-win-win. Like you want to win, you want the audience to win, and the meeting planner, you also would like to win, right? So if all those things are true, then you're probably going to want to go back again, next year or the next few months and have them come back and have you come back and speak again.
All righty. And so earlier when we were talking about the number one secret to getting booked and
Yes.
staying booked, you said that goes along with the 15-minute action step that
Yes.
you're going to share with our audience. So can you let us know more about that?
Absolutely. So it's what I call the speaker soulmate system. And you're going to find a person who matches hopefully 3 of these criteria. Doesn't have to be a match 100%, but this is what you're going for, the trifecta. One is this person speaks a similar frequency as you. So if you are kind of brand new, cool, find someone else who's chomping at the bit to get out there speaking. Or maybe you're like, oh, I've done it a few times. Maybe find someone else who's done it a few times. Number 2, you want to find someone that you know, like, and trust. I know that sounds super obvious, but think of this speaker soulmate as your inner circle. Like you probably have lots of friends or lots of acquaintances, but you only have 1 or 2, maybe 3 best friends, right? Like this is a close circle. So it's really important that you find them reliable, trustworthy. You'd put your name on them. You believe in what they do and they believe in you. So it's going to takes up a little bit more of that time investment to see like, are we a fit? Because you're going to be referring this person, they're going to be referring you. And then the third one, and this is the kicker that people often forget, is that you want to have somebody who speaks to a similar audience as you, but is not your competition. So, for example, like if someone's in mortgage and they partner up, maybe their speaker soulmate is in title, right? Or escrow. They speak to a similar audience, maybe realtor groups, but they're not in competition. In fact, they need each other and they'd be really complementary. That makes it super easy for your soulmate to recommend you and vice versa. So now all of a sudden you are exponentially increasing your bookings. I mean, I've gotten hundreds of bookings this way. Literally the red carpet just rolled right out for you. You don't have to be hunting and pecking and going on Google down the rabbit hole, filling out applications. I have no idea if anyone's ever going to get back to you. Now where the 15 minutes comes in is take at less than 15 minutes, honestly, just like, who could that possibly be for you? It might be somebody you already know. It might be someone you don't know that well, but you're like, maybe, maybe Mary Jane or Susie wants to partner up with me. And you make an effort to reach out to them and share this idea. You got to get buy-in, right? They have to agree. And say, hey, I learned this new tip and I'd really like to get out there speaking. What do you think? Would you be willing to have that conversation? And okay, let's set up a plan, right? And I have my way of doing it, but it's not the only way. So that's how it starts. People think sometimes like, oh, you have to do so much. I'm like, actually, if you can go deep on a relationship, that can pay off way more than going to more meetings and getting more leads and cold calling and searching and you got to have fun and some freedom in your life, right? So
definitely, it's always all about those relationships. So so you have your referral partners and you've made these relationships, you have your talk ready, and you understand who your target audience is, or your ideal audience is. So now whenever you're up on stage speaking, what strategies can entrepreneurs use that's going to help them attract their ideal clients while they are speaking.
And this is different for everyone. In fact, when I help someone get their talk ready to rock, I call myself a talk doula because I don't know, some people are more teachers, some people are more inspiring storytelling, some people like case studies. But what they all have in common is as a speaker, you do want to be sticky, you want to be attractive. So, for example, you want to maybe tell a story or share a confession that a client confessed to you and then how you help them. For example, one of my clients, she would see all these people speaking and making all this money and they'd have their masterminds and this big offer. This is how she came and approached me about it. She was like, I'm tired of watching all these people with these big offers and I'm not making any money. And this isn't fair. How do I do this? How do I get up there? I'm not scared. I just don't know how to put it all together. So this was years ago and we literally put her talk together in her style. She had a very specific style and in a way that she could use it without, if technology wasn't working for her, she was not a high tech person. She was comfortable. She didn't need to rely on anything fancy schmancy. She's really powerful when she actually gets on stage and knows what she's talking about. Her first talk after getting that all settled, she did in front of 150 people and got clients for the first time from speaking and where it's able to actually put people into her program. That was huge for her. It broke open everything. Like all of a sudden now she does 5-day challenges. She's changed her business since then and has no problem if someone's like, would you like to come and speak? And she can give her offer without a doubt, without any hesitation. That's super powerful.
Very. And lastly, what do you think is one or two of the biggest obstacles that aspiring speakers face?
I think it's what I call speaker's kryptonite, which is like we might know what we're supposed to do. Like you're listening to this and you're like, okay, so I got to get my talk done. And then you might think, oh, I don't know. I have so much stuff I could talk about. I don't even know how to narrow that down. I'm going to do that later. I'm still going to be working on my talk. I got to research more. What do people want? I don't know. What if no one buys my thing? Like, and we just go right down that little spiral drain. And then all of a sudden a year goes by and you're still working on your talk. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we could have had this done like 2 hours. Boom, boom, done. Let's get it done so you can get out there and be brilliant and share your brilliance and really help people. That's the whole point. We're heart-centered, purpose-driven people. We want to get out there and change lives. That's the whole point. So anything that's getting in the way of doing that, that's what I like to help people with.
I love that. Thank you. I love the way that you share about it too. So I know that you have a gift for our listeners. Can you share what it is?
Absolutely. This is great if you want to learn how to get more speaking gigs because it's at getspeakinggigsnow.com/tips, TIPS. And you'll get 5 top tips to get more speaking gigs. So it's going to be delivered right there to you. And there's some bonus stuff in there too. So that's 5 top tips to get more speaking gigs. And you just go to getspeakinggigsnow.com/tips.
All lowercase TIPS.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. There you go.
Got
Either way.
All righty. And thank you so much. And do you have any final thoughts you'd like to leave us with?
I would just say, do what makes your heart sing, be you, everybody else is taken.
Always. I love that. Thank you, Lisa. It's been a pleasure having you. And thank you for coming and sharing your knowledge with us. Deeply appreciated.
Thank you.